Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Storydwelling. I'm your host, Heatherlyn, and Storydwelling is the name of this talk show. It is also a personal practice that I invite you to join in with me, cultivating courageous, compassionate curiosity for ourselves and one another, recognizing the shaping nature of narrative. Each episode, we have a special guest joining me, and you and I, our job is to take a deeply listening inner posture and to be aware of how our bodies and our hearts and our minds are responding as our own story that we dwell in interfaces and encounters the story of our guest. So I am really excited to have my friend John Noltner here tonight. So please welcome him in the comments. John, what is up, man? It is so good to see you. Oh, I have to unmute you.
Well,
There you
Heather.
are. I just unmuted you. There we go.
Oh,
Okay.
and I was just saying it's good to see you as well. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
having me.
It's so good to see you. So you all, John and I go way back. Like I was in my 20s, I think, singing at a youth
Oh, I was
group
much
event.
older than my 20s when
But you're,
yeah, I was a lot older than that, but you were in your 20s.
I think so. I was singing for a youth group event that your daughter was attending. And then you came in, I think, when I was singing, and we started talking about this. At the time, it was a new project that you were thinking about. And I was like, oh, this is the shizzle, and I want to know more about it, and I want to collaborate.
And we've collaborated frequently through the years.
And I'm so grateful. So this is your second time on Storydwelling, but a lot of new listeners, new people, so they might not fully know about you and a piece of my mind. So would you mind telling us a little bit about who you are and what led you to creating a piece of my mind? By the way, I want to mention the opening video. The instrumental track belongs to my song When I Dream from my Storydwelling album, which I will sing for everyone before the show is over. And all of those photographs were taken by our guest tonight, John Noltner. So he will share about some of those with you throughout the show. And I'm really looking forward to that. But before, let's give a little background, a little bit of that, a little setup, a little context.
Yeah, of course. So I have always worked as a freelance photographer. I've shot for national magazines and Fortune 500 companies. I like to say about 11 or 12 years ago, the economy handed me some free time. The recession hit the world of photography pretty hard and pretty fast, and my workload dropped. And I used that time to start a personal project because I'd been frustrated with the quality of our national dialogue, the way we as a society fail to story dwell. You know, the way we are so quick to look at what divides us. And I wondered if there was something I could do with my photography and storytelling to look at what connects us. And so It started out as a really simple process. I just sat down and started interviewing people from all different backgrounds, asking them, what does peace mean to you and how do you work towards it in your life? And we would do an hour-long recorded interview. I would shoot a black and white portrait. At the time, I was doing primarily black and white. And I would share those stories. First, we shared them in a traveling exhibit. Then we shared them in a book. All of the first stories were done in Minnesota, which is where I lived at the time. Then we decided to grow it and spent a few years driving 40,000 miles across the country, gathering more stories, again, from Holocaust survivors and refugees and people who've been through the prison system, and a really broad cross-section of who we are as Americans. There's the map. That's the route. 9 or 10 different trips over the course of a few years. And the goal, again, is to try to remember the common humanity that connects us, to cultivate that compassionate curiosity that you talk about. And now we're right at the front edge of a new series. So over the years, we had developed public programming around this. So we would show our exhibits. I would do lectures and workshops about how stories can connect us. Yeah, that's our American Stories exhibit. And last year, I did programming in 20 different states and on 4 different continents. And then, of course, when coronavirus happened, everything came to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
And so, well, it took us a little time to find our feet, to
Yeah.
figure out what we wanted to do. But now, well, we're going to be busy for a while. I should just add my environment here.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
happen to be
Context.
sitting in my truck right now. My wife Karen and I sold our house about 2 months ago with the goal of buying an RV and just traveling across the country and gathering news stories for this project. Right now we're in South Carolina, and we're at a campground that was supposed to have really good Wi-Fi, but it's not. So
Yeah.
rather than sitting in my adorable little trailer and talking to you, I drove down the road to where I have a better signal. So that's
Yeah.
why I'm sitting in my truck now.
Well, thank you so much for doing that for us, John. And I can't wait to see your adorable little new home. That's really a bold.
It's an easy sacrifice.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so
Yeah,
glad that you're
next time.
okay. Next time. And that is a pretty brave and bold move that you and Karen have made. Really amazing. What is it that was it just sort of like we're gonna really just go all in and collect all these stories, and so we need to be on the road if we're gonna do that, or what was that move for you?
Well, it was a bunch of things, and one of them is that yes, that it was time to create a new body of work. Part of it is that last year, Karen and I were apart for 180 days,
Wow.
and that's not why we got married. And
Sure, makes sense. Fair.
we came to the realization that we could afford to lose her income. Well, we had to choose 2 of 3 things. We could lose her income, we could buy our own health insurance, and we could pay a mortgage. We could do 2 of those things, but we couldn't do all 3. And so the mortgage was what went by the wayside so that we could travel together like this. And when we lost our revenue stream because of the public programming that went away, we held an Indiegogo fundraiser, and we had almost 400 people that stepped up and said, yeah, we want to see this succeed. We want to see this grow. And so that
Awesome.
funding is going to keep us going for at least 6 months on the road, and then we'll figure out what happens next.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I'm so glad that there's a whole community of people coming around you and seeing how valuable this is and making sure that you both are continuing down the road. That's so good. So I want to take a moment and say hello to a couple people who are here. So Rick is watching in Roaring Canyon, Utah. So good evening, Rick. Good to see you. Shout out to Julie for being here faithfully. And Julie also helped me test the interview feature on the latest Ecamm update today. So thank you, Julie, for all of your support and love and help. Thank you, Doug, for being here. Doug is also here regularly, and I appreciate your presence, man, and Denise as well. So here are friends Toby and Jason says, hi, John.
Hi, Jason. Good to see you.
So we're so grateful
What a
that
surprise
you're here.
that you're here, Jason.
What a surprise that Jason is here. So please do comment wherever you're watching from. If you're on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, please comment so that we know that you're here and we can say hello to you. We're so grateful as well to our Patreon community for supporting this series. Thank you for being in our lives, for helping us amplify voices, and thank you for just being a part of us creating, learning, organizing, producing these shows. We really appreciate you and helping us perpetuate the practice of story dwelling. So I wanted to ask you, John, you said that you've always been doing photography for like Fortune 500 companies before the recession that led you to ultimately creating A Piece of My Mind and making it seems like your life calling to me. It's pretty incredible. But I would like to go back actually just a little bit further, if that's okay. I would love to know when did you first take a photo? Because I don't think they had iPhones back when you were a very little John Noltner. I'm just
Wait, what are
assuming
you suggesting about my age right now?
just a wild, respectful guess. That's all. And I'd
We
love.
didn't have digital photography in any format when I was a wee little John Noltner. Um,
Mm,
my first camera I bought when I was 9 years old, from mowing lawns and shoveling driveways and saving my money.
mm,
And it was a Canon AE1,
hmm.
and it was film. And then I spent the next several years of my life with my mother telling me I shouldn't take so many pictures because all of those pictures cost money.
Yeah.
She was a very frugal woman.
Yes.
Um,
Uh-huh.
but so I was interested in photography from a really young age. Never really realized a person could make a living doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I'm not convinced that a person can make a living doing it,
I
but
understand, my friend.
um, yeah. But I got
Mm-hmm.
my degree in writing.
Mm-hmm.
I started out as a newspaper photographer. It really wasn't until my first senior year of college that I realized that photography was a viable career path.
Mm. And the coupling together with journalism. So photography, writing, photojournalism. What that like the marriage of those two? How did that come together for you, or why is that your passion?
Well, so the school I went to did not have a photojournalism degree per se. They had a writing degree, but between journalism and art department, I wound up with about 30 credits of photography. I knew that
Mm.
I wanted to do photography, and so I sort of crafted my own path of study. But the field of journalism itself, the ability to be curious about almost anything and
Mm-hmm.
find an excuse to engage with it and to write about it.
Yeah.
That was really my draw to the field. I'm insatiably curious about almost everything.
Yeah.
And journalism was a platform that I could use to explore the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it was justifiable. And so, I
Yes.
could write or photograph barges going down the Mississippi one week and pig
Mm.
farmers the next week,
Mm.
and beautiful spas in Chicago the week after that. And so this
Mm-hmm.
variety was fascinating to me. And in the process, I I sort of fell in love with meeting people from different backgrounds and
Yeah.
hearing stories that were different than mine, and learning about experiences
Mm-hmm.
that were different than my own. And I found beauty and wisdom in all of it. And
Mm-hmm.
and that really is what has set me on this path of discovery that we're on now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All of that right there. All of that. All of
Yeah,
that.
those things,
All
those
of that.
things.
like if I had Story Dweller awards, you would be like you would like have one.
I'm saying all the things.
Yeah, I mean, you the passion of your insatiable curiosity and just your ability and your willingness to see beauty and to hear wisdom and to believe what they tell you and about their lived experience and all of that. It's beautiful. And I'm so grateful that you do share it with us and with the world in all the ways that you do. And we'll get to that later on in the show, all of those different avenues that you use and that people can engage with you. I'm looking forward to that. I wanted to just say one more thing before we go to a song, or ask you about one more thing. You had mentioned back in the recession, I'm guessing that's around 2008, 2009, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you spoke of being disappointed in the national dialogue, and wow, like right, true, I agree with you. And also, we didn't know it could get worse, did we? Like it is.
Yeah, it has not gotten better at all,
Oh
which
man.
tells me either I'm not doing my job very well, or there's just so very much work to be done in the world.
we need you to have a comparable platform to like the White House or something, like
Yeah. I don't think I have quite so many followers on Twitter, but
yeah.
we're trying to meet loud, angry voices with
Mm,
compassion and
mm.
understanding and patience.
Yeah, how are you doing that?
Um,
What does that look like? Compassion, patience, understanding to voices that are contrary and probably angry and just don't get it. They don't get it. Right?
I think very often we can get caught in the trap of going down the rabbit hole of the day and
Right.
responding to the outrage of the day and yelling into that storm. And for a little while, that might feel good, that might be effective, but I'm not sure that it solves our problems. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure that it gets to the heart of our need to see the humanity in one another. And
Mm-hmm.
so I try not to engage in that sort of shouting match. What I try to do through the stories I share is craft a steady stream of humanity and
Mm-hmm.
honor and dignity for people from all backgrounds. If they've been through the prison system, if they have dealt with substance abuse, if they find themselves homeless,
Mm-hmm.
that each person I encounter and interview and share, that
Mm.
we uphold their dignity and
Yeah.
respect their position and do the best we can. Everybody has something that we can learn from.
Mm-hmm. You stalled out just for a moment when you said, do the best we can.
Oh, did I say something good? Should I try to say it again?
Try to say it again.
Just do the best we can to recognize that dignity in each person we encounter.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for doing that. It seems to me that you not only see peace as a goal, but you see peace as the means to that goal. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, it's a process
mm,
and it's a destination. I think it's a nonstop effort to
mm-hmm.
do better and to make connections, to
Yeah.
challenge our expectations, and
Mm-hmm.
to commit to building community
Yeah. Yeah.
like you
Beautiful.
do.
Well, thank you. I'm trying. I'm doing my best. Right.
Yeah, that's all we
So
can do.
yeah, I just wanted to mention that Erica Staub is here. Hello, Erica. Good to see you. And she says, "Love to you both. Thank you for all the beauty and
I know
kindness you
Erica.
both put into the world." So yeah, good to see you again, Erica. And uh, hello to Teresa and Tom in Minnesota, and Aaron Kolb in Wabasha, and. And Denise is speaking of her first camera, I believe, K1000. Had a lot of fun with it. So that's really cool. And then Doug is sharing such an astute observation on life. The opposition and arguing can only bring a temporary satisfaction. That's really true, right? We need to kind of work on our own emotional intelligence and skills around that, right? Like managing those feelings the energy that surges through us, channeling it for an ultimately better course and better purpose. So I'd like to share my song "When I Dream," honoring the call and the cries for peace that exist in the world, in the streets, across the ocean, everywhere. I believe there are so many who are crying out for peace through justice. And when we come back to more with you, John, after this song, I'd love to hear about your time standing on the intersection where George Floyd was murdered by the police there. And you spent time listening to the voices of people in the community, their response to what happened, and you have some incredibly powerful portraits to share with us. And so would you be willing to talk with us about that experience and share those stories with us after this song?
Yeah, of course. I'd be happy to.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you all so much for being here tonight for Storydwelling and together cultivating courageous, compassionate curiosity for ourselves and one another, recognizing the shaping nature of narrative. John Noltner of A Piece of My Mind is with us tonight, and this is my song from the Storydwelling album called When I Dream. Dream, it's like TV screens are on the inside of my eyelids, but I don't have a remote to take control, to choose my shows. Seems my fears come alive, no matter how hard I try to wake up. Now I lay my head down, hoping for surround silence. If trouble comes while I sleep, let there still be only peace. Let there be peace. On my pillow, still can't be consoled. God, I was told you'd never leave. Still I cry, where did you go? No matter how bad I want to believe, yeah. Now I lay my head down, hoping for surround silence. Let me awake to greet the sun, wondering where the night went. Now I lay my head down, hoping for surround silence. If trouble comes while I sleep, let there still be only peace. Let there be peace. Peace on earth and in my soul. Peace on earth and in my soul. Peace on earth and in my soul. Peace on earth and in my Now I lay my head down, hoping for surround silence. Let me awake to greet the sun, wondering where the night went. Now I lay my head down, hoping for surround silence. Let me awake to greet the sun, wondering where the night went. Peace on earth and in my soul. 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 All right, everyone, welcome back to Storydwelling. Not that we ever went away, but I just always talk about coming back after a song. My guest tonight is John Noltner, A Piece of My Mind. Check out apieceofmymind.net, but the initials of it. Check it out. John
It's so
Noltner.
good to hear your voice.
Oh, thank you. It's been a while, I think. So I'm glad that you're here tonight and we can share our gifts with each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that was When I Dream from my Storydwelling album, which we released actually shortly after you and I met. So it's been over a decade, my friend.
Oh,
And
man.
yeah, and it's been brilliant to be a witness, sometimes nearby and sometimes from afar on social media. It's been a good thing to be a witness of the evolution of A Piece of My Mind and your unfolding journey. And I don't think we told people where you are at this moment. I mean, we know you're in your truck, but maybe we just touch on that and then get back to Minneapolis. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
great. We're spending a little bit of time in Charleston, South Carolina right now. There's so much rich history here, some really painful history,
Yeah.
some really challenging history, and we're connecting with some really interesting folks, talking about race, talking about some of the things that have been successful in building bridges and connecting people. But we're also just trying to be really honest about some of the pain that still exists in the world and some of the ways that this historical pain that we've experienced in our country is still rippling out today. And so, I've been talking with people who are doing interpretive work on plantations to try to make sure that there is a full reckoning of the history of what has happened in those places.
Incredible.
Uh,
Yeah, that's important.
just a gentleman I just yesterday I interviewed a gentleman who is heading up a new museum, the International African American Museum, which is built on the wharf where 40% of the people who were enslaved came into the harbor, and they're sort of reclaiming that sacred ground now as a place to honor the stories and tell the stories of those people who were a part of that transatlantic slave trade.
Wow, that is incredibly powerful and important. Is there a way for us to connect to that if we want to keep in touch with that project and know more about it? Or is
Yeah,
it?
if you just Google International African American Museum, I was at the site yesterday. They're in the process of building it. It's Architectural Digest has called them out as one of the most important institutional projects in the globe right now. And the architecture of the space is going to be gorgeous. It's going to elevate and honor the history of that place. And they expect it to open in 2022.
Oh, that is so good to hear. I'm so glad that story and that part of the narrative is not being suppressed, but it is being uplifted and amplified. That is just brilliant to hear. Brilliant. I'm so glad.
Well, and I want to add when we talk about this work that I'm trying to do, I always have three audiences in mind. And the first audience is myself, because as I come to a town like this, I mean, I'm a northerner, right? I'm a middle-aged white guy. I'm the poster child for privilege. And so to come into a space like this and sit in some of these conversations and meet some of these people who are doing amazing things, my first audience, and maybe this is selfish, but is myself, because I learned so much in the process and I wind up seeing the world in new ways through their stories and through the conversations that they share. And so that's always my first goal. And I figure if I'm curious about something, probably other people are too. And I'm not afraid to wade in and have those conversations. My second audience is the person that I'm interviewing, because I want that other person, much like you do in your process, I want that other person to feel whole. I want that other person to feel heard, and like they've been upheld in the process. And then, of course, my third audience, as I share these stories publicly is the general public,
Mm-hmm.
who I hope can learn from these exchanges the same way that I do.
Yeah, awesome. Well, would you be willing to share with us about your time in Minneapolis, in and how you held space for amplifying voices and listening, how you held space for people in the community in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd?
Yeah, let me start by saying that when that happened,
Mm-hmm.
I was isolating at home. I was self quarantining at home like so many other people because of coronavirus, and
Yeah.
I was quite content to stay in my house. But
Mm-hmm.
um, this George Floyd was killed about 10 miles, 11 miles north of my house,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew, given what a piece of my mind tries to do,
Yep.
tries to amplify voices that need to be heard, tries to engage across difference, tries to hear stories that don't always make it
Mm-hmm.
to the ears that need to hear them. Um, when that happened, I knew that I needed to go out and I needed to be a part of what was going on in the city. And so,
Yeah.
uh, for about a week after it happened, I brought a small portable studio down to the intersection of 38th and Chicago. And I set up a light, and I simply made myself available to anybody who wanted to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two different formats when I do my storytelling. The first is these long form interviews where I sit down with people and we record an interview for an hour, and then I do a portrait. I also do these short form studios where I will ask a single prompt and I'll ask people to respond in 25 words or less, and I will do a black and white portrait and combine their words with their pictures. And you saw some of those
Mm.
in your introduction
Yeah.
that you shared. When we do that, we can get more people. You know, we can get a large body of work. And over the course of this week, we had 50 people that responded to the question, what do
Mm.
you want to say? You know, I struggled a little bit with the question that I wanted to ask, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to lead. I didn't want my question to have too much influence.
Yep.
I simply wanted to be a set of listening ears to bear witness and to acknowledge
Mm-hmm.
and to listen. And so that was the question. What do you want to say? And
Mm.
over the course of the week, 50 people came up and shared the stories, some of which you
Mm-hmm.
had in that video.
Yeah. So I love that approach, John. You are so thoughtful about your audiences and different forms of how you go about this and how you gather stories and communicate them. I know that when you first started this, your question was, what does peace mean to you? You asked a bunch of people from different walks of life, what does peace mean to you? I know you've been to a college and you said, what is the world that you want, or something like that, right? And so that is beautiful how you come up with. We have a little bit of a stall here. There we go. Um, Beautiful how you come up with that and the
I'm
simplicity
with
of
you.
it, so so that you don't influence the answer too much. That's brilliant. And so for this
Well, and
series,
so,
go ahead.
oh, you go. Go ahead.
So for this
Oh,
series,
I
you were
was just
saying
going to say, so,
the
oh, we did it again. Sorry.
that's
Sorry.
so fun. It's so fun. No worries. I was
You
just
go.
recapping that you were saying the question in Minneapolis earlier this year as you stood on that intersection. The question was, "What do you want to say?" Which is brilliant.
And we change that question depending on where we go. If a
Mm-hmm.
community wants to specifically talk about race, you know, we've
Mm-hmm.
asked the question, what's the unique opportunity or challenge of talking about race at this moment in history?
Mm-hmm.
I did a series with veterans talking about suicide prevention, and we simply asked them, what have you learned? And left it up
Mm.
to them. We asked people about how, you know, what sort of world they want to live in. You referenced that we did at Cornell University.
Yeah.
And so we changed that question depending on what a community wants to talk about. But in the process, we gather this body of work that helps that community or that organization talk about their deepest values
Mm-hmm.
and how they see themselves living in the world and how they want to connect with others. And it's public art, and I always tell people that public art only works when the public shows up. And it's always
Mm.
a little bit horrifying because you show up with nothing and you hope that people will respond. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you that it has never not worked. When you
Mm.
create that space where you want to listen, people are ready to share.
Yeah. I just thought I'd pull up. We're about to show a few of your black and white portraits from Minneapolis, so I thought I'd show a way in which it became public art. Um,
Oh, yeah, and we can talk
yeah.
about that a little bit too. We've started doing that in different locations where we will project these images large on the side of buildings. So they're 20 feet by
Mm-hmm.
30 feet. So people can't not see them. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a really magical way to invite the entire community into the art.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Mm.
Uh, this is Mike Brown. So this isn't from Minneapolis, but since we have him here, um, would you like to say something about your time with him?
Yeah, this is Michael Brown Sr.,
Mm-hmm.
whose son, Michael Brown, was killed in Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and actually, he was in Minneapolis. So Michael Brown
Oh,
Sr. came to Minneapolis right after George Floyd was killed
gotcha.
to talk with those families, to
Mm-hmm.
counsel a little bit about what it is like to be in the midst of this media storm, to counsel a
Mm.
little bit about the path of grief that he's been on as a father. And
Mm-hmm.
as it happens, I was able to connect with him when he was in town, and I did both a long form interview with Michael Brown Sr. As well as included him in this series.
Mm. Where can we find your long form interview with Michael Brown Sr.?
Well, so I have a podcast right now, which is in transition.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to rename it, but right now it's called How Life Changed.
Okay.
And it really was a series of stories. I interviewed 40 people for this podcast about how their world has changed during coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I did 39 of those. And then Michael Brown came to town. And so we're going to shift this to the new A Piece of My Mind podcast that
Okay.
shares broader storytelling other than just the coronavirus
Mm-hmm.
narrative.
Okay.
So if you on all of the places that you get your podcasts, if
Mm-hmm.
you search for How Life Changed,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's episode 40, which will be Michael Brown Sr.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That is so powerful. I can't wait to listen to it.
Yeah, he has some powerful words to share.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure. Who is this, John?
So this is a young woman that I met out on the street, and basically
Mm.
the process that I had, I set up my light, I had my camera, um, and I stood there waiting to make eye contact with people to see if anybody had some curiosity, some interest in what I was doing, and then I
Mm.
invited them to share. And I'll tell you that this young woman was with her friend, uh, young man, and they were going about their day. They were talking to each other. It was a little bit lighthearted, even in the midst of the place that we were.
Mm.
And she asked him to go first, and so he shared a story, and then he had to leave. And I looked at her and I said, "Have you figured out what you want to say yet?" Because she said she had to think about it a little bit. And she
Mm.
looked at me, and her face went serious, and she started crying.
Mm.
And I said, I'm so sorry. What is it?" And she said, "I thought of what I want to say." And she said this quote, "Am I next?"
Man.
And I looked at her and I said, "Now
Mm.
you have to tell me the right thing to do." I said, "We could do your photograph now, or if you want a few minutes to
Yeah.
uh, find your composure and to wipe away your tears, we can do your photo then. And she said, no, I think you should do it right now.
Yeah.
And so that's when we did that one.
Wow. It's really
And
powerful.
it's sometimes a challenging thing in those really brief exchanges when emotion becomes so powerful so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's really important that we acknowledge that and we don't shy
Mm-hmm.
away from that. I think often we try to protect ourselves from those sorts of really powerful exchanges. But in the
Yeah.
process, we also rob ourselves of the opportunity to connect deeply
Mm-hmm.
with people who we may never see again. But that little bit of energy and that little bit of acknowledgement, I think, can go a long ways towards healing the world.
Yeah, for sure. Simply allowing someone to be where they're at and let what is flowing through them flow through them. I
Yeah.
imagine that's part of why she felt she could show that to you in your camera lens, right? Like, how
Yeah.
brave of her to share that with us. Like, I'm really grateful. I kind of want to thank her, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, for
for
sure.
showing us that. Um, should we just keep going with a few more here?
Yeah, I'm happy to give you the
Okay.
backstory on some of these.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and I have all of these people's names
Mm-hmm.
written down somewhere. I don't include the people's names in the finished pieces. One, to protect their privacy a little bit, but also because if people were to look at these stories and they see, oh, this is Michael Brown Sr., oh, this is, Anthony, um, they may give a little bit more weight to Michael Brown Sr. because that's a famous name that a lot of people know. But this gentleman, who is not famous in that same way, his words are just as powerful. His words are just as meaningful. And so I try to level the playing field in this project.
Mm,
Um,
that's great.
Everybody is shared. It doesn't necessarily matter what their name is. They're speaking for themselves and a lot of other people who
Mm-hmm.
also see the world this same way. So in this case, this gentleman was in my proximity, and I could hear him on his phone, and he was really animated, and he was saying this quote that's on the side. And when he finished on his phone, I was close enough, and I sort of approached him and I said, hey, I'm working on this project, and I overheard you a little bit, and I feel like those are really important words to share.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider sharing them for this project? And so he restated them, and he agreed
Mm,
that he would be a part of the project. And so, very often I would catch somebody's eye, or I would hear them talking with a friend, and I would wait until there was an appropriate time to sort of invite them into the project. And not
mm-hmm.
everybody said yes.
Right.
It was a
Yeah.
pretty raw and emotional time for a lot of people, and a lot of people wanted to grieve privately. A lot of people wanted to not share their thoughts publicly.
Yeah.
And when that was the case, we said, okay, thanks, and we moved on. And sometimes, I can be an introvert in some ways, and if you get rejected 10, 12, 15 times in a row, it can be a little hard to ask the
Mm-hmm.
next person if they want to participate. But I
Right.
knew that this could be an important body of work. I knew that there were
Mm-hmm.
stories worth sharing. And so I just kept asking.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. That's powerful.
Mm. So this was actually on one of the cleanup days. I mostly was out on the street from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I was not out when the big crowds gathered. I was not out when some of the restlessness and some of the looting and the more destructive stuff happened. So this was actually I met this woman the first day after um, some significant looting had happened. I don't remember what
Mm-hmm.
night that was. Maybe it was Thursday night. Maybe it was Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, part of the cleanup crew that had
Mm-hmm.
come out to help clean up some of the mess, and it was remarkable to me, the army of people who showed up from the community
Yeah.
uh, to clean things up, to help support one another, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure things were okay. And I'm not a fan of looting and rioting. I'm a pretty strong adherent of nonviolence and peaceful protest.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there was a small number of people who were doing some of the destruction, and I think uh, some of the people who were doing that were not the protesters at all, but they were
Right.
people who were opportunists, who were
Mm-hmm.
taking advantage of a really chaotic situation to insert the chaos that they were hoping would come of it. So
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a saying that I heard first from Jim Wallace of Sojourners.
Mm.
I'm sure it's been said by other people too, but uh, that saying is that you cannot, in good conscience, be upset with the rioting if you are not also upset at the conditions which have led to
Yeah.
the rioting.
That's right. He was probably quoting Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., actually.
I
Yeah.
think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I
Mm-hmm.
think that I think that people derail the conversation very often when they go down
Mm-hmm.
that path, and they remove the focus of the attention on the conditions which have led to the frustration that leads to the protests. And I think that
Yeah.
it's really important that we keep our eye on that prize, and
Mm-hmm.
that we keep our eye on that core message, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't let other people um, overtake the narrative.
That's right. And I'm glad that you're bringing the narrative of there were so many people in the community there to clean things up. Like it was, from what I understand, it was actually a lot of outsiders, people who didn't even live in Minnesota, who came in to wreak havoc, and the opportunists, as you mentioned. So I appreciate you sharing with us an image of someone who was there, dedicated to cleaning it up and
Yeah,
taking care.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, I mean, it was a complicated time, and there
Mm-hmm.
was, it's hard to get all of the facts, but
Yeah.
um, in the midst of it, the fact that so much of the protest was peaceful protest,
Mm-hmm.
that so many of the people were starting community food shelves, were
Mm-hmm.
protecting their own neighborhoods, were looking out for one another. This is the good news that I see from the process.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. How about a couple more, maybe? And
Yeah,
okay.
you know
Well,
what? This is
yeah.
this is kind of weird, but because I'm sitting in my truck, I need to start my truck so that I can keep charging my battery.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna hurt our audio at all.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
tell me if it's a problem.
So far, so good. We can just hear
Okay.
it dinging.
All right. Well, the dinging is done, and I mean,
Good.
this is part of the new life that we're learning on the road. We have to figure out how to do some of these things
Yeah.
living in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So
All
throw up
right.
that image that you had again.
Okay. I think it was this one. Yes.
Mm. Uh, so people who follow sports will probably know that this is Tyrone Carter. I think, if I get
Hmm.
his name right. I'm not a football fan, and I know very little about it, but I didn't know that this guy was a famous football player. I saw him on the
Mm-hmm.
street the day before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this was right at the intersection. He had driven his Jeep into the intersection. He had some music playing. He stood up through the sunroof and was talking about love, talking about coming together, talking about making sure that there was healing going on. And I found him so charismatic. I found him
Mm.
so appealing. The next day, when I came back, I just walked past him on the sidewalk. It was just the two of us out there.
Hmm.
And I said, "Hey, excuse me, was that you in the Jeep yesterday?" And we started this whole conversation. I introduced myself, he introduced himself.
Hmm.
Um, but when he said his name, I didn't, uh, react with any sort of recognition because I don't follow football at all. And
Sure.
we got to the
Yeah.
end of the conversation and he sort of laughed and he goes, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And I said, "Oh no." I said, "Should I?"
Hmm.
And he pulled out his ID and he pulled out his Hall of Fame card from the NFL. And then I realized that he was, someone that a lot of people could recognize. But
Wow.
I was interested in hearing what he had to say simply because I'd seen him engaging with the crowd the day before, and
Hmm.
people were drawn to him, and he had an energy and a positivity and a joy
Hmm.
um, that wouldn't quit.
Mm. That is so cool. Awesome. This is a powerful, powerful question.
Mm, yeah. And this was another instance. There were this guy happens to drive a motorcycle, and he and his friend had parked their bikes right at the intersection, and they were talking to each other. And
Hmm.
this was on the very first day that I was there, and I saw him there across the street, and I just walked up to him and I introduced myself and told him what I was doing, and he said, "Yeah, sure, I'll share a story." And so this is what he came over and said.
Mm.
And I don't edit these at all.
Yeah.
I share what's on people's hearts, what they want to share. This is not an exercise in John deciding what narratives should be shared. This is an exercise in listening.
Yeah.
And somebody looked at the series the other day and wrote a piece about it and said, this is these ideas that people have shared. This is simply a reflection of who we are in America and where we're at right now. And I think
Hmm.
it's really important that we simply listen.
Yeah.
I don't have to
Agreed.
decide whether he's right or wrong. I don't have to decide
Mm.
whether that's a worthy statement. I have to acknowledge that this is on his heart and what he
Hmm.
wants to share. And that process of
That's right.
listening is
That's right.
is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, really important. Really important. Friends, I just want to say hi to Quincy, and Caitlin is here as well. So thank you for joining us. You all are watching Storydwelling, and we know you're here if you say hello in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. All right. My guest tonight for Storydwelling and the practice of cultivating courageous, compassionate curiosity is my friend John Noltner, mastermind of A Piece of My Mind.
Whoa. Whoa.
I know, right? And right now we are looking at gorgeous black and white photographs that John captured while standing at the intersection of
38th in Chicago and Minneapolis.
38th and Chicago and Minneapolis, immediately following the death of George Floyd, which impacted this whole country and this whole world earlier this year, and is hopefully continuing to impact us so that we continue to work towards racial justice in this world. So let's look at a couple more of these and then I'll do a song. How about that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, we already did
There's
this one.
Tyrone
Yes.
again.
Okay. How about, let's see, just give me, okay, here, we haven't done this one yet.
Mm, right. We need to uphold the basic right for humanity, hold each other accountable, and teach each other it's not about color, it's about heart.
Hmm.
And you'll notice this fellow has the logo for A Piece of My Mind, one of our peace stickers on his helmet. He
Hmm.
I,
That's so
I gave
nice.
him that so he would have the website, and he instantly put it on his helmet.
Cool.
But again, I heard him and a few friends talking rather heatedly. And if you look behind him, underneath the words, it's that George Floyd mural that's
Yeah,
painted on the side of Cup Foods that so many people are familiar with.
that's right.
That
Yeah.
was one of the centerpieces of the memorial there at the site. And
Hmm.
in fact, I photographed him as well as his two friends who all had something to say.
Hmm.
And these were brief encounters because of coronavirus, normally I would have a little form that people would write their response on, but we didn't
Mm-hmm.
want we didn't want to be sharing paper. We didn't want to be sharing pens.
Yeah.
Um, he was wearing and I was wearing my mask right up until the time we took the portrait. And I took these with long lenses. So we're
Mm-hmm.
probably 10 or 12 feet apart at this
Gotcha.
point.
Yeah.
And so he just took his mask down for a short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
I kept mine on for the photograph. But we just had a little web-based form, and people could scan a QR code with their smartphone,
Mm-hmm.
and it would bring them to a web-based form where they could fill out their information and
Oh,
write their response, so that we didn't have to exchange pens. We could remain socially distant.
that's so smart.
And well, I needed help to figure it out. That's not my skill set,
Sure. But you have a
but a good
team.
friend of mine, Nick Tyson, helped me come up with that form, and then I printed out a big QR code that I held on a clipboard, so I could just hold it up, and from a few feet away, people could scan it with their phones.
That is so brilliant. And this was just back in May, right? So we didn't
Yeah.
know a whole lot about coronavirus yet and what would, prevent transmission and all of that. So good for you for finding a way to do this so well in every aspect of it. Let's
Well,
go to
again,
yeah,
I was happy to be isolating at home,
that's right.
uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but I knew this was my first time that I'd really ventured into around any people at all during
Mm-hmm.
coronavirus. So I was being cautious for my own sake, and I was trying
Yeah.
to be cautious for everybody else's sake as well, while
Mm-hmm.
still doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you.
Oh, and this is one of his friends.
Okay.
Once all non people of color realize their day-to-day privilege and use it for good, we'll have liberty and justice for all.
Mm,
And I think it's interesting. I mean, when we talked about this a little bit earlier, when we recognize our own privilege, we
yeah.
need to decide what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to center that all on ourselves, or is there some way we can use that to
Just a tiny little lag here, but
did we
so
freeze?
far, yeah, we had a
Did
little
we
lag
freeze?
here. So, speaking of privilege, and we are all somewhere on a spectrum of privilege, and how do we use the privilege that we have? How do we recognize it and use it? Did you say more than that? Did we miss anything in there that you?
No, I think you
Mm,
got it.
okay.
It was, whether we use that privilege to center on ourselves or whether we use it to uphold the
Mm-hmm.
common good.
Yes. Right. Right. I think this maybe was one of his friends as well. Is that true, or did I have them in
Yeah,
order,
yeah,
or
you
no?
got all three of them there together.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and what you tolerate today becomes commonplace tomorrow. To create a brighter future, we must make a stand today.
Wow.
And I just want to add that when I normally do these studio things, I normally have a backdrop, and it's just against a black
Mm,
curtain. But of course, when we were out on the street, there was no good way to do that. There was no good way to have a backdrop,
mm,
and at first, that felt strange because it was outside of my normal model.
yeah.
But when I figured out that we could use the street as the backdrop,
Mm,
I found some beauty in that. So we could underexpose the street scene so that it went a little bit dark in the background, and I could still control the lighting that was on the person, so we could add a little bit of drama into that. I mean,
mm-hmm.
that's a little bit of inside baseball talking photography, but I
Hmm.
was really uncomfortable, not certain how I was going to do it. But we just let it play out, and it turned out to be beautiful.
Yeah, cool. Denise says she's still here, still in Alabama, and this is fascinating. Thank you.
Wait, where in Alabama, Denise? Do you know, Heatherlyn?
I do not know, so we'll wait for Denise to respond to that. And Stan Anderson is here, born in Minneapolis, 31 years in Boulder. Beautiful to drop in again. Thank you for who you are being, each of you. And And also, thank you to Julie for putting up the Patreon link, because it is this production is created in partnership with our Patreon community. So if you'd like to become a part of that for a little or a lot, any amount per month, so that we can keep creating, organizing, producing, amplifying voices. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I lost my place in the photos, but how about this one?
Yeah. This country was founded on bloodshed and power. To tell Black people to protest peacefully is contradictory to the principles this country was built on. And I didn't really know exactly who this man was when I encountered him either, but his name is Hawk Newsom, and he was one of the co-leaders of Black Lives Matter in New York, and has at times been a controversial figure, but has some truth to speak to power. And so I was grateful for him to take a couple of minutes and share with me on the street as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And he has a point about a double standard, right? Like, our country was founded in revolution, and revolutions need to keep happening, you know?
Yeah, there was, here I am in Charleston, South Carolina, and we were learning just a couple days ago about a man by the name of Denmark Vesey. And Denmark Vesey he was born enslaved. He was able to purchase his own freedom after he won a lottery. I guess there were lotteries in South Carolina way back in the day too. But then he was frustrated with the condition of slavery. He was trying to find ways to find independence for his people, and the white population put him down violently and dramatically. Hanged, I don't remember how many people, but it was a substantial number of people. And I just found it so ironic that in the history we tell ourselves, just 50 years earlier, white colonists were fighting the Revolutionary War because they wanted their independence. Yet 50 years later, they couldn't recognize Denmark Vesey's desire for that same sort of independence for himself and his people.
Yeah. Wow.
And so there's a real disconnect about who we name as villains and who we name as heroes in our history.
That's right. That's right. And there's a lot of hypocrisy around that, and varying motivations for who we see as human and equal. I had pulled up this one, so I want to do just one more, and then I'll do a song, because I kind of teased and then I pulled it away. So I want to make sure we do this one. And
there it is. Yeah, America will never be great until all races love each other and all people come together to stop the brutality of Black Americans and minorities. And I hope today changes somebody's heart to do the right thing, because love conquers all. And this was an individual who I had walked by earlier in the day, and I made the invitation, and she was really interested, but she had to leave. She had to go off and go somewhere else. And it was probably 4 hours later, when I was about to leave for the day, that I heard somebody shouting my name from half a block away that said, "Hey, John, hey, John." And of course, a lot of people say, "Hey, I'll stop back a little bit later," and then they don't, or they get busy, or they forget, or they change their mind. This person called to me from half a block away as she was getting out of her car, and she said, "Hey, I still want to do that thing. Do you have time for me?" And in fact, I think I had packed away most of my equipment and I was walking back towards my truck, but I said, absolutely, if you came back, we're going to make this happen. So I pulled out my gear again, and we did this portrait and took the response.
Awesome. I'm so glad. You look like an impressionist portrait right now, because of the lag time on the web or whatever. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, there's a little bit of, oh, there. Well, maybe I should stay this way. Oh, there I am.
That's so funny. Y'all, my guest tonight is John Noltner of A Piece of My Mind. There he is, sort of coming back.
Oh, that's not a good look right there.
It happens, my friend. It
Sorry.
happens. No worries.
Oh, sorry.
I love it. Hey, so Denise replied in Jasper, Alabama, about 45 minutes from Birmingham. And if it's okay, I would like to share this in my anti-racism group. And absolutely, Denise, please feel free to share that. And also welcome your anti-racism group to connect more with A Piece of My Mind and the podcast and so many incredible, beautiful resources. So grateful that John can join us tonight, and you are watching Storydwelling, and that is the name of this talk show. It's also a personal practice that I've carried in my being with me as I've spent time traveling the road. It's a practice that I invite our viewers and listeners into, and hope to take it even deeper and farther in 2021, this concept and practice of storydwelling for those who would like to come along with me. We want to thank our patrons. You are the reason we can do the Live Online with Heatherlyn series and the Storydwelling show. So we are so grateful to you. Please consider becoming a part if you'd like to, or if you'd like to drop a one-time thank you and just say, yeah, we want to make sure that you keep doing this. This was a value to me tonight, and I want to share it forward with others. You can check out the virtual tip jars there. And of course, please do check out heatherlynmusic.com and check out John Noltner's space, apieceofmymind.net, using the abbreviations of A Piece of My Mind. I want to sing this song about grace because I desire to see a world that is more gracious, that uses the approach that John talked about in listening, simply listening and taking in. You don't have to prove themselves to you, but simply listening and believing them. So this is Grace from the 9 Beats EP, Dance of the Deep. And we just need to make sure it's a little bit tuned up. I was talking, and that just happens. It goes a little bit out of tune. So Dance of the Deep EP, desiring a world that is gracious, full of courage and compassion. Thank you again for being here tonight with us, y'all. Feel free to share this and comment, let us know you're here. We might get a little dial tone because John's internet did drop off, so he's going to call us back. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the song, and we'll just go with the flow. That's the deal. We're streamers, so. Hovering in the morning mist, like a long-lost lover's kiss, bright, resplendent, light transcendent, everything my soul could wish, dancing in the early dawn, like a star in earthly form, breath and breathing, need and needing, and my heart is strangely warmed. Grace, oh grace, your face shines wise, your eyes speak kind. Grace, oh grace, why are you so hard to find? Why are you so hard to find these days? Oh grace, oh grace. dressed in sunshine, shining gold, aching beauty to behold, life and living, gift and giving, grace the story to be told, haunting music. Oh, here he is. All right, our guest is back. I am just gonna finish this song, John. Haunting music on the breeze, sing your song in freedom's key. Dreams we're dreaming, make our meaning. In harmony we find release. Grace, oh grace, your face shines wise. Your eyes speak kind. Grace, oh grace, why are you so hard to find? Why are you so hard to find these days? Grace, oh grace, your face shines wise. Your eyes speak kind. Grace, oh grace, why are you so hard to find? Why are you so hard to find these days? Oh, grace. Oh, grace. Friends, that's my song, Oh Grace, co-written with my friend Steve Bassett on the Dance of the Deep EP. You can find it online. You are watching Storydwelling, cultivating courageous, compassionate curiosity for ourselves and one another, recognizing the shaping nature of narrative. And tonight we have an incredible storyteller, photojournalist, my friend John Noltner of A Piece of My Mind. So glad you got back here. We have one more segment together, so I'm glad you made it. And this is just how it goes as we stream and work with Wi-Fi signal and all of that jazz, right? They're tools that we have to dance with. Unmuted, muted. Okay, I can't hear you. Hold on one second. Let me see why I can't hear you. That doesn't make sense. You're unmuted. And hang with us, folks. Let's see if I get this right. Let me hear you speak, John. Can I hear you? See, he's not muted there.
And there's no audio coming in.
There's no audio coming in. That's fascinating. We had audio, and I'll just mention that FJ said goodnight from the island. I can't remember what island, but that's cool. And then let's see. Carolina Stark, thank you for the reminder to find the grace and create the peace in our world. Yes, indeed. And I see that I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but it looks like you have been a part of John's A Piece of My Mind projects because I see your portrait has a quote. So that's really awesome. So Jason is trying to help me get John's audio back.
I have him come call in again.
Cool. And so he's going to call in again. So I am just going to keep chatting here. Please say hello to me in the comments. That is how I know that you're here watching from Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and maybe LinkedIn. I don't know if we have anything from LinkedIn, but we especially want to thank our Patreon community. We're just waiting. We're hoping we can get our guest back tonight. We've had a really robust hour, actually, with John Noltner already. But we are hoping to get him back here shortly. So you and me, we'll chat. And thank you again for being here, and thank you especially to our patrons for all the ways you show up and encourage, not only with resources but with your presence, with your love, your encouragement. Because to do work like this as a creative, creatives not only need resources, we do need our morale boosted. We need the encouragement, and we need our people to encourage us. So here's John. Let's see if the audio will work this time. John, I see you, and I'm assigning you as my guest one, and you're unmuted. Let's see. Add right. There we go. I think, well, you went black. He was there. I think I'm hearing my audio go through his thing. So we'll give this another minute here. Yeah, I think I'm hearing my voice somehow go through John's thing and come back as a web streamed. It's like a sonic pixelation. Cool. So, we still can't hear our guest at the moment. So you're John, I imagine you can hear me. So I just want to thank you for the valiant effort you're giving right now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Woo! Let's see. Little applause for that. Oh, let me hear your voice again. Let me hear your voice. Are you there, John? Now I can see you. Woohoo! Well, thank you for bearing with us, y'all. Thanks for patience. We just wanted to do one more segment with John and talk about the shaping nature of narrative, essentially, and talk about Stan. Yes, thank you for celebrating together.
I think he's just his connection in
Okay.
Carolina is just not.
Maybe we'll have to have you back, my friend. I think we're going to have you back to talk a little bit more.
Wait, you can hear me?
Oh, I can hear you now. But it keeps going in and out. It doesn't seem like a consistent signal.
I'm going to say hello and hope that you can hear me.
I can hear you say hello. That's good.
I can hear you,
Okay.
but I don't think you can hear me.
I did just hear you say, I can hear you, but I don't think you can hear me. So
Let's wrap up. I think his signal's just dying.
okay. I think we're going to wrap up for now and have you back, John. If you can hear me, let me know that you will come back on the show. How does that sound?
It sounds good. I'm texting with him.
Okay. All right. So we'll have John Noltner of A Piece of My Mind back for another episode of Storydwelling. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, John. Thank you for your valiant effort. Here's his information. I want you to check out the website and do feel free to share this episode with others. And I'm just going to wrap up with a song of blessing for our guest, because he is still there and I think he can still hear us, but we can't really hear him and it's no longer a consistent signal. So John, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of this, for being a story dweller in this world, and thank you for joining us tonight and sharing so much goodness with us. I want to share this song as a song of blessing, of peace on his work and his life. He didn't want to talk about it too much, but he was kind of attacked recently online. And so as his work gets out there are people who have tried to create, an energetic force of opposition. And so we want to just send him and his wife, Karen, with and in peace. And do follow up, find his website, find his podcast so you can hear more stories, see more beautiful portraits, even view some videos that he's created. So a bummer that the signal pieced out on us, but I'm so glad we get to have a really fantastic hour with John, and we'll have him back soon. All right. Thanks, everyone, for hanging in there with us. Really appreciate you. So we'll see you next week. Please do come back, same time, same place, streaming live again on Facebook, on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube for my Songs of the Season, Holidays with Heatherlyn show. And I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to that. So hope to see you then. Feel free to invite your loved ones across the world to share that virtual experience with you, to chat it up in the comment thread, and I'll chat along with you in between songs. And we'll have a great time. So thanks again, everyone. Please receive these words of life and send them to someone you love. Peace ever, joy ever following you. Light ever, love ever radiating through. Hope ever, faith ever strengthening you. Life ever, breath ever nourishing you. And everywhere you go, may you always be home. And everyone you meet be messengers of peace. Let your light shine through, and your heart ever be true. Move in grace and gratitude, and walk in wisdom, sharing all that's good. Peace ever, joy ever following you. Light ever, love ever radiating through. And everywhere you go, may you always be home. And everyone you meet be messengers of peace. May we choose courageously. May we hope defiantly. May we love outrageously, and walk on lightly in humility. May we choose courageously. May we hope defiantly. May we love outrageously, and walk on lightly in humility. Beauty and laughter ever filling you. Friendship, affection surrounding you. Be in peace, everyone. Thanks again. See you next time.